Like it or not, fanservice is a vital part of anime as a medium. Given how prevalent these scenes are in all kinds of shows, be it action, fantasy, or mystery, it should come as no surprise that their entire shows focus solely on fanservice. And while it can be quite fun to just turn off your brain and enjoy the eye candy the shows deliver, that's usually all there is to it. So when 2.5 Dimensional Seduction rolled around, I pretty much expected more of the same. I had heard some rumblings about it being deeper than that, but I just wrote it off as the fanbase trying to convince people to watch their favorite show. For the first 4 to 5 episodes, I thought that my assessment had been pretty spot on. While the characters certainly were unique to some extent, the other 20 episodes clearly had much more to offer, even cutting back a bit on the fanservice just to give the story and the characters a bit more room to breathe. The comparisons between this show and My Dress Up Darling obviously have some sort of merit. After all, both are highly rated shows tackling the topic of cosplay, but their approach to the topic couldn't be more different. Because while Dress Up Darling concerned itself with the how of cosplaying, 2.5 Dimensional Seduction is much more focused on the reason behind it. Why do people cosplay? Our protagonist is Masamune Okamura, a die-hard otaku. Often, in these types of shows, the main character is somewhat of a wet blanket, not really showing a lot of personality in order to let the audience self-insert as that character. But Masamune isn't like that at all. He has a well-defined personality, isn't afraid to assert himself or his opinions on others, and gives his friends the push they need to better themselves. After a few episodes, the show does develop a sort of harem-esque situation. There are some girls that clearly like him, and some that also do, but might not have realized it yet. And just like in all these other harem shows, the main character just doesn't seem to notice it for some reason. However, while this setup may sound cliché, and it is to some extent, the execution of it is just phenomenal. The girls don't fall in love with him just because he's the main character, but because of his words and actions around and towards them. And it doesn't just happen overnight. These feelings slowly develop from just friendly affection into a full-on crush over the course of several episodes. But to some, the most frustrating aspect might be him not responding to these feelings in any way. And while I understand the sentiment for most other shows, as it is just a poor excuse for letting the story go on longer, the same cannot be said for 2.5 Dimensional Seduction. In fact, I'd say him not responding to these feelings is a core part of the show. Let me explain. Right in the first episode, he mentions that his mother leaving him to go be with some guy, along with him getting ridiculed for confessing to the girl he liked, forever made him distrustful of 3D women. However, it is mentioned in such a way that it feels more like a throwaway comment, a plot device to explain his obsession with 2D girls more than an actual attempt at characterization. And for a while, that sort of stays true. The focus lies on the cosplayers, and the main character is just sort of there to support them and help them with their issues. However, when the focus is shifted onto him in the latter part of the season, we discover how deep his issues truly run. When he overhears a conversation between Ririsa and Mikari about their feelings for him, his whole worldview breaks down. His mistrust for women runs so deep that he can't fathom them ever having feelings for him. But while this does cause him to reflect and change, this change doesn't happen instantly. He becomes aware of the feelings those around him hold for him, but can't and won't respond to them without giving it some deep thought. A decade of trauma can't be solved by one conversation, after all. While Okamura is certainly a very interesting character and someone who gives the show some extra depth, he isn't the one who makes the show what it is. That honor would go to the cosplayers. And where else would I start with our female main character, Ririsa, and the person who I view as the antithesis of her, Mikari. To me, these two represent the base reasons why people cosplay, with everyone else's reasons ideologically being a mixture of these two. On the one hand, there's Ririsa. Her reason is utterly selfless, where the only reason she cosplays is for others to gain the same appreciation for the character she loves as she has. She's utterly devoted to this one character and loves cosplay as a whole more than anyone. Now, while this might be an idealistic view of what a perfect cosplayer would look like, Mikari's version is a far more realistic one. The only reason she cosplays is to impress the guy she loves without really holding any love for the character she cosplays, at least in the beginning. While using cosplay as a means to an end rather than an art form we respect is something most people wouldn't be too happy about, I don't really mind. I think cosplay is a hobby that can be enjoyed by people from all walks of life, and as long as you have fun with it, it doesn't really matter that much what your intentions with it are, be it your own satisfaction or making other people happy. While these two are the first two cosplayer girls introduced in the show, they are, in my opinion, the two least interesting ones when it comes to discovering what cosplay is all about. They lay the groundwork showing both the extreme ends of cosplay, but I personally think the others, who show a bit more nuance, are far more interesting to talk about. When we first meet Noah, it would not be an exaggeration to call her a bit unlikable. During a meeting with our two main characters, instead of talking to them about their shared interest cosplaying, she just stares at them intensely until they go away. Certainly not the best first impression. And when the viewer is shown her reaction to being ranked below Ririsa in the rookie cosplayer ranking, one might assume that she would become an antagonist of sorts. That couldn't be further from the truth, however, as she wanted to become friends with her, but simply was too shy to say a single word. This also explains the mystery of her first on-stage appearance. When she made her cosplay debut, she just went on stage, didn't say a single word, and left again. Many assumed this was due to her fully committing to the character she played, when, in reality, it was simply her being nervous. And this already hints at the core of what Noah's character is all about. After a traumatizing experience in middle school, where her passionate rambling about her interests got shot down by a member of her club, she stopped speaking altogether as she feared she would experience something like this again. After that, she became a gloomy loner that no one really wanted to talk to. She herself wanted to escape this, but her previous experiences made her sure of the belief that no one would want to befriend her, especially in the state she was in now. That's where cosplaying came into the picture. It was the perfect way to escape her gloomy self and to become a person other people would want to interact with. Obviously, there are some flaws with this way of thinking. Putting on the cosplay doesn't magically erase your social anxiety, and making connections on the basis of pretending to be someone you're not isn't sustainable in the long run. However, in the short run, as it can be seen with Noah, it can help you get out of your shell and find the people that love you just for who you are. The next one to join our main cast is Aria. She, just like Mikari at the beginning, doesn't have a lot of knowledge or interest in cosplaying itself, but for some reason still insists on becoming a cosplayer. Turning up to a photo shoot with something that can barely even be called a cosplay, she earns the ire of Noah, who accuses her of not even really being interested in cosplay. And that accusation isn't really that far off the mark. She simply saw cosplaying as a tool to get what she wanted, her father's attention. She thought that if she became famous cosplaying a character from her father's manga, he would have to notice and reach out to her. However, the other club members convinced her that such a shoddy outfit would never get her famous, let alone get her the attention of her father. So they made her a proposition. They would help her with the cosplay if she underwent a so-called anime training camp, help her find anime she enjoys and consequently not see cosplaying as just a means to her end, but an actual hobby she can enjoy. Over the course of this anime training camp, she grows to like a few of them, with her being particularly attached to to the anime that the whole gang is cosplaying from, Ash's War Chronicles. After that, by way of coincidence and some clever investigating from Okamura, they found out that Aria's father was also the author of Lilia's Side Story, a spin-off which all the cosplays so far were based off of. That means that they could all cosplay characters from their favorite show at the next convention, while still helping Aria achieve her goal of getting her father's attention while cosplaying a character of his. In the end, Aria managed to reunite with her father while gaining a new hobby and new friends in the process, all because of cosplay. However, one must realize that cosplay isn't just rainbows and sunshine, and the teacher is a perfect example of that. She was once one of the most well-known and renowned cosplayers, and even was the biggest inspiration for Ririsa to start cosplaying herself. However, by the time the show started, she had already retired from cosplaying. From one day to the next, she simply stopped appearing at cosplay events. But while it is treated as an unsolvable mystery for a bit, once she gets introduced to the cast, the reasoning for it becomes pretty obvious. Simply put, she was afraid of losing her job. While cosplaying was a passion of hers, society doesn't view it as something that a working adult should be doing, especially if it meant dressing in skimpy outfits and if that job was being a teacher. But instead of informing her friends in the cosplaying scene of her decision, she chickened out. She felt guilty over leaving them, so instead of communicating with them, she just left without saying a word. Now, this doesn't mean that you cannot do cosplay while being a working adult at all. But once you grow up, you might realize that cosplaying is something that could be detrimental to your adult life in the long run. Cosplaying is a hobby that many different people from all different walks of life enjoy. Be it to bring attention to yourself or to the character you cosplay, whether you only cosplay the one character you love or you change it up at the drop of a hat, each version of the hobby is just as valid as the next. Cosplaying can bring people together in their appreciation of shows and characters and help form new friendships. While 2.5 Dimensional Seduction might not be the most realistic show, I think it perfectly captures the essence of what it means to cosplay. The trials and tribulations it can bring with it, but also the beautiful moments of companionship it can create. Although I don't regularly cosplay, I do know some people who do, and for a few of them, this very show gave them a sort of second wind in pursuing that hobby. And even I, who didn't really have that much of an interest in cosplaying before this, must say I got a little bit curious. In conclusion, I'd say that regardless of if you have any interest in cosplaying or not, this show is one I'd urge you to check out. I think the lessons these characters learn, while obviously taught through the lens of cosplay, can be applied to all sorts of different hobbies, especially those that aren't necessarily seen in a favorable light by a majority of people. In the end, it doesn't really matter why you enjoy a certain hobby. As long as you yourself can draw enjoyment from it, even if that means earning the disapproval of others, that's all that matters. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing.